there a minute ago, you mentioned Steve Keirn, and right here before we got recording, you told me a pretty interesting story about Steve Keirn and some of the connectivity he has
Okay.
to you and your wife. And I was wondering if
Yeah,
you could recount that for our listeners.
I would love to. I met Steve in Atlanta, and when this is the first time I went and wrestled for Georgia Championship Wrestling in 1981, and I think I might have gone in late '80, but it was in '81. So Steve and I hit it off, and he comes to Georgia, and instead of renting an apartment, which is not a bad idea, if I didn't smart enough to do that, then maybe I would have. But he bought a house, so he made an investment. So he wasn't just paying rent every week. When he left there, he had a house to sell anyway. So, but his house was out in the Stone Mountain area of Atlanta, and he says, "So why don't you move out here, get an apartment out here?" And where I was down in like kind of South Atlanta, near the airport. Wasn't a really nice area anyway. And so I said, sure. So I found an apartment there. It's called Summit Creek Apartments, and so we could hook up and ride together more easily. So that was through that relationship. And I was actually with him the night his first child was born. Wow. So anyway, I'm sitting at the pool one day, and I see this pretty little girl walking around the pool in a bikini, and admired her from a distance. And then, obviously she was with a group of people, so you're not going to just walk up in there and go, "Hi there." I went back to my apartment. I took a shower, got cleaned up. I was going somewhere to wrestle. And it's funny. I got down to the one. If I turn left, I'm leaving the apartment complex. If I turn right, I'm going back towards the pool. I turn right. I go back. I park my car, and I'm talking to myself, and I'm going, "Ted, this is probably about the stupid thing you've ever done." And so I'm walking around the pool, looking around as if I forgot something or I lost something, like maybe there's an outside chance I can meet this girl. And so Melanie told me later, she said, the guy who spoke up to me, he was the wrestling fan, and so he says to me, he says, "Hey, Ted, we've got a girl over here who wants your autograph." And like, I guess it wasn't like a date, but like I guess a bunch of them all worked together at because she was a checkout at a grocery store anyway.
Okay.
And so the girl over here wants your autograph. Says, "Hey, Mel, you'd like to have Ted's autograph, wouldn't you?" And she wasn't even paying attention. Like she was in the pool with, they were like, how when you get up on somebody's shoulders and they horse around, try to pull them down.
That's like a chicken fight.
Yeah. And so she goes, "Autograph?" She says, "I've never had an autograph." She goes, "Yeah, here, sign my visor." And her visor was all wet. And even if it wasn't all wet, I said, "Well, this is not going to work. Your visor's all wet, but if you'll follow me in the office, I'm sure they have stationery." And so I go, "I can't believe this is happening." And so Melanie follows me into the office, and I said, "What's your name?" And she said, "Melanie, but everybody calls me Mel." I said, "To Mel, the best looking girl at the pool for sure, triple exclamation points." And I dated it for 2681. I never did that ever. I mean, why would I date this autograph? It's like 4/26/81, April of 26, 1981.
Incredible.
And so she thanks me. She goes, "What number are you?" And I said, "Excuse me?" She says, "So you play for the Atlanta Falcons, don't you?" She thought I was a football player. She had no idea. And I said, "No, I'm not a football player." She says, so why am I getting your autograph? I said, "I'm a professional wrestler." And she goes, "You mean like that fake stuff on TV?" And Marcus, I think by now, that's the worst thing you could say to a professional wrestler, that fake stuff on TV. Yeah, it's prearranged, but if you understand what we do, It's not so fake. But
Nothing fake
anyway,
about it.
I said that. I said, you're probably the only person in the world who could ever say that to me and get away with it. And I said, yes, I'm one of those guys. And so, uh, and so I said, well, this autograph is going to cost you. And she says, what? I said, just your phone number. And she looked at me. She said, well, I'm not in the habit of giving perfect strangers my phone number. And I said, okay. I mean, I understand that. I said, but it's not like you don't know where I live, you know? And I said, if you give me your phone number, I just, give you a call maybe. And she says, okay. So she gives me her phone number. And so I call her and we made arrangements to meet back at the pool. And she told me later, she says, there was no way that I was just going to go out on a date with this guy that's 6'4", 240 pounds, without getting to know him better. And so that's why she said, why don't we meet at the pool? And so we met back at the pool. We spent the whole day there. And I said, so you want to go out for dinner tonight? And she says, yeah, sure. And so I think our first date was to Benihana's. Oh gosh. But that's how it all began. And I don't know. It's just, it was almost like we were inseparable after that every day.
A really cool history with you guys, and it's just
Yeah.
interesting that, without Steve Keirn, you would have never met your wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
That Steve, as a friend, it was just my buddy. He says, hey, you owe me a lot. I said, what do you mean? I said, if it weren't for me, you'd never met your wife.
well, what else is interesting too is as you were telling me this story, you kind of wrapped it up by saying that, yeah, but then, whenever I moved back to Georgia, we moved into, you said it was her parents' house, right?
Yeah. I mean, she lived close to where that apartment complex was. And she would go there with friends that lived there or had connections there, and they would go there for the afternoon or whatever, as a group.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just on one of those days I happened to be at poolside, and the rest is fate. I keep thinking about that when I pulled out and I stopped, and I sat there for a minute. Do I go left and just blow it off and go to work, or nah? So I went back to the pool. I'm telling you, it was just meant to be. So
Between that and the fact that you wrote down the date randomly is just really unique and cool. Like, what a pivotal moment in your life, and you just
yeah,
happen to have the wherewithal to write down the date and mark this day in your history, and you
yeah,
still have that note to this day, right?
yeah. Still have the autograph that I signed for. She's got in a frame hanging on a wall.